In this lecture, which is actually a live demonstration, we're going to see how we can use ClickOnce component in Visual Studio for deploying our Windows Forms application. But first, let's talk a little bit more about ClickOnce. So what is ClickOnce? ClickOnce is a component in .NET Framework. It supports deploying .NET applications created with Windows Forms, also known as WinForms or Windows Presentation Foundation, that is WPF. Moreover, it supports installed and online applications. Also, applications deployed with ClickOnce can be self-updating. Last, it is very easy to use since you use this component via Visual Studio. So you can use ClickOnce via the publish functionality in Visual Studio for your WinForms and WPF projects. Let's learn more about it by watching a live demonstration where we are going to deploy our text editor using ClickOnce in Visual Studio. So here we are back to our development environment where we are going to create a deployment for our text editor demo application using the ClickOnce component in Visual Studio. The whole process is very easy, and let's see how you can achieve this. So if you go to the properties of the project, there is a tab named Publish. So in this tab, you can set different publishing information about your program. And this is how you use the ClickOnce component. So first you need to specify the publishing folder. It can be an FTP server or a file path. This file path can be a local file path on your development environment or a network share. So I will be using a file share here, and this is localhost, and the folder is text editor deployment. Then you need to specify the install mode and settings. So you can choose whether the application is available online only or if the application is available offline as well. And that means that it is launchable from Start menu. Then you open the application files, and here you check the files that were automatically included in the deployment package. So here you can see you can select to include or exclude. By default, these three files are included in my deployment package, and here we have the executable file, the config file, and the manifest file. So that's okay with me, and now we proceed to prerequisites. In this dialog, you set the prerequisites for your application. For example, we are developing this text editor demo application using .NET 4.7.2, and as you can see, it is automatically selected as a prerequisite. You can also choose to include other prerequisites, and for these prerequisites, you have three options when it comes to specifying the install location for this. So the first option is to download the prerequisites from the component vendor's website. The second option is to download prerequisites from the same location as the application. And the third option is to download prerequisites from a custom location. Since the only prerequisite for our text editor demo application is Microsoft.NET Framework 4.7.2, I will just leave the first option here, that is downloading prerequisites from the component vendor's website. In this case, download .NET Framework if required from Microsoft website. The next dialog is very important, and is the updates dialog. Here's where you specify whether the application should check for updates. Of course, we want to do that because we want our application to be self-updating, because this is after all one of the benefits of using a ClickOnce component in Visual Studio for deploying your applications. And here you have two options. You have the option for your application to check for updates after it starts or before it starts. What we usually see in the software business, the majority of applications checks for updates before they start. So as soon as you launch the application, it checks for updates. And this is what we are going to do here as well. So I will keep the default option, which is checking for updates before the application starts. Here you can also specify a minimum required version for this application. I won't be using this feature. And last but not least, you need to specify the update location. Now, since this is a simple live demonstration and I'm using simple development environment, I will specify as an updated location the share I specified earlier as the publishing location as well. So if this location is different than publish location, you need to specify it here. If it is not different, you can leave this blank and the publishing location will be used. However, I prefer to enter it here as well. Even though it is redundant, I will just paste the location that I'm using as a publishing location as well. Now, if you are deploying a commercial application that you have developed, instead of using a network folder, you can use an FTP location. And that's because a network location cannot be accessible by your customers, but an FTP location, properly set up, can be accessible from your customers, and when your customers launch your software program, the program will be able to check for updates using that FTP location. So for this demo, we're using a local network folder. So we click OK, and last we have the options dialog. Here you can set some meta information about your program. You can specify the publish language. I will leave the default. It is English for this demo. As a publisher name, you can write here your company's name or your own name if you are developing the software tool as an independent developer. Suite name, if it is a software suite, you can specify the name here. Product name, it is very important because what you specify here, it will be also what will be used if you place a shortcut on desktop and so on. So I will name this text editor demo app. You can specify support URL, error URL. You can enter here a deployment web page, and this web page can open right after your application is published. Here there are manifests where you can make additional options, for example, create desktop shortcut. I'm checking this because I want to have a shortcut to my application on my desktop. You can block application from being activated via URL and many other options here that you can check, and if you need them, you can use them, as well as you can set file associations for your program. Okay, so here in the published version, I have the versioning of my published software application, and I will keep the option here to automatically increment revision with each publish. So now I save everything and I rebuild my solution. Note that when you publish an application, you need to be using the release mode here instead of debug, because the debug mode includes some additional symbols in the executable for allowing debugging, but by the time you are publishing your application, it means that it is ready for release, and that's why you'll use the release mode in Visual Studio. So you rebuild the solution, and then you click on Publish Now. So now the publishing has started. Before the publishing, a rebuild takes place as well. And now you can see that publish succeeded. So if we check the network location we specified earlier in the publishing options, you can see it is localhost text editor deployment. You can see that this is our setup file. So let's run setup in order to install the tool on our system. You can see it verifies the software requirements, and this is the dialog you get. Here you get the warning that publisher is not verified, but that's natural because in order not to get this message when someone installs your software application, you need to digitally sign the setup executable, and you need a code signing certificate for that. So it is good to know this information as well. Now let's proceed with installing our tool. And you can see that now our application has been installed and automatically started. So this is our text editor. And now let's try to open a file here just to confirm that it works as designed. You can see. Okay, let's close the program. Let's go to desktop. You can see this is the desktop shortcut for our application. And if we double click, it checks for updates. If there is not an update, then the program starts. Now the next step is to create an update for the application and see how the application detects that there is an update and prompts the user in order to install the updated version of the application. So let's go back to Visual Studio, and this time let's make a change. So here we have our application, and what we can do, we can add here in the help, for example, another item and name it Online Help. Let's double click in order to add a message box there, for example. Since this is just for demonstrating the update process using ClickOnce, I will just display a message when I click on the Online Help. So I will be displaying this message each time someone clicks on Online Help. Essentially, if we created Online Help for our tool, here we could open a URL that would be the Online Help for our program. Okay, now let's rebuild and let's publish again our program. So let's go to Properties, Publish, and click Publish Now. There is another way for publishing your tool. You go to Build and click on Publish, and this launches another wizard which helps you set the same settings as we did here on the project properties. I will cancel this and do it just like we do it earlier via the project properties publish dialog. So now, because everything is stored here since the previous actions we took for creating the deployment for our tool, so the only thing we need to do now is to click Publish Now again. Yes, you can see Publish succeeded again, and this is the updated setup file. However, let's not run the setup file manually. Instead of that, let's go back to the desktop and double-click the program shortcut. And now it checks for updates, and you see that we are prompted with this dialog that says that a new version of text editor demo app is available. And it asks us if we want to download it now. So here again you see the name of the program and then download location. If you used an FTP, here in the From information, the FTP address would be displayed. However, since we are using a local shared folder, this folder is displayed here. So if we click on OK, our application will be automatically updated. So let's click OK. And let's see now if in the Help menu there is the new menu item Online Help. So you see Online Help is here and works just like we developed it earlier. So that was a simple live demonstration of how you can use ClickOnce component in Visual Studio in order to create deployments for your .NET applications. In this case, we created a deployment for our .NET Windows Form text editor demo app, and with this deployment, we also demonstrated how you can easily manage program updates for your applications developed in .NET and Visual Studio using the ClickOnce component. This video is part of my online course .NET Programming for Beginners, Windows Forms in C#. Check the video description for enrolling to the course with a major discount. Thank you for watching this video.